Hello, everyone. Um, Starting the recording right now. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay, good. Hi everyone. Welcome to the first of hopefully many Q&A Ask Crypto Expert kind of webinars where you guys can post questions and ask me stuff about crypto. I guess a bit about myself. I'm Michael Tazzoni. Voice behind the podcast. I've been in crypto since very early beginning. I believe I joined sometime, and actually I know exactly. I joined on May 16th of 2011, big event for me. And I've actually been in cryptocurrencies or digital currencies, let's say, for many years before that, since actually around 2003. Excuse me, I'm drinking some soda, having lunch. Um, I actually got into digital currencies back when they were mostly video game realm and experimental kind of stuff. So when cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin showed up, it was kind of a simple translation going from one to the other for me. So like a lot of people, they first find out about Bitcoin and they're like, well, it's not really backed by anything. Where does value come from? And they kind of sit on it for a long time before actually investing. Whereas I got lucky in that I was already had some experience with digital currencies and their conveniences before Bitcoin. But what Bitcoin added was that until Bitcoin, there was every single digital currency was run by a single company or entity. So there was always somebody you had to trust and make sure that the company would stay in business. Like for instance, Flues was kind of a big one. I wasn't involved in it, but it had Oprah Winfrey as one of the people behind it, and it was supposed to be like a currency of the internet. But the company went out of business, and um, so did the money. Another one that I actually invested in was Second Life Currency. Unfortunately, that one was also run by a company, Linden Labs, and even though it worked really good for sending transactions, um, there were some regulatory issues that happened with that, and that pretty much ended up killing the whole currency there too. Excuse me. Bit of allergy right now. I don't have the corona, don't worry. But Bitcoin was the first one that actually started out completely independently without relying on a third party. That's probably why it still exists 10 years later, because there's nobody who can regulate it away, or no company that can fail. And any kind of issues that would happen on the currency just get fixed by all the open source contributors to it. There's actually a concept in crypto space called anti-fragile, which means it's a general concept, not in crypto, but it really applies to crypto. So typically, when things are fragile, if something breaks in that thing, it gets broken. Basically, gets worse. So um, an example would be like your car is fragile. Over years, it gets worse and worse and worse as things wear out and things break. Anti-fragile is opposite of that, where when something gets broken, instead of it just getting broken, it gets fixed, and that thing never gets broken again. So internet would be an example, and obviously Bitcoin is an example of anti-fragile, where every time there's a bug or an issue that's or an exploit, something gets broken, which has happened in Bitcoin a couple of times already. It gets fixed, and the system gets stronger. So because there's enough support behind it, and because enough people want to fix it and keep it going, the more it gets attacked, the more resilient it becomes. Anyway, yeah, and besides background in crypto, I also have a background in economics. I have a bachelor's and a master's in finance and econ. I have a background in IT. I used to work for McDonald's Corporation for as an IT manager for a while, and I worked in IT as a developer for a long time. So kind of also lucked out, I guess, in that I have both an IT background and a finance background and an economics background. Actually, finance and economics are two rather different fields, which are is kind of the reason why there's a bit of an infighting going on in Bitcoin. But that's kind of off topic. Anyway, to your questions. So one of the most common and most requested questions I've actually had is how do you get Bitcoin? So the first thing I would recommend is get a wallet. There are a number of Bitcoin wallets out there. Some of them are good, some are not. Uh, the one I typically recommend is called Edge Wallet. It has that kind of an icon, as you can see. Sorry about the glare. I actually worked as a Mycelium head of Mycelium wallet development for a long time. I worked as a community manager and brand manager for Mycelium for about 3 or 4 years, and then worked as head of development. Mycelium is a good wallet with regards to um, Mycelium is a good wallet with regards to supporting, I guess, what you call it, hardware wallets. Hi, welcome. But it's the development, like the developers are good, but the actual management is not so great. Like I'm not very confident in the company, and actually that's the main problem with a lot of other wallets as well. A lot of them have like one or two developers, so if they decide to quit, you might be kind of stuck. Um, explain that again. um, Nice thing about wallets, and one thing to watch out for too, is backups are standardized across a lot of them. Not all of them. Generally, the standard backup right now is BIP 49, we believe, or BIP 39. It looks like a lot of words, about 12 to 24 words that you write down. Those words are your private key, as long as you have a copy of those words written down someplace. You can restore your Bitcoins on most of these standard wallets. So Mycelium does follow that standard. Edge wallet is the one I actually use, which I just showed you. That one does not follow that standard, unfortunately. But it's more designed to be like a simpler, more intuitive use, where in order to your private key is actually set up as a password and login like you would with a bank. The difference is that instead of Edge, the company, getting a copy of your login and password, the login and password actually sends through an algorithm that converts it into a private key. So all your Bitcoin are secured by that login and password. I don't, I haven't checked, but I think you may be able, I don't know if you can restore your Edge wallet Bitcoins if Edge should go down, like if their servers should go down. I believe you can. But anyway, the reason I like Edge more is because, for one, uh, much more easier, intuitive to use. Easier and more intuitive to use. What you call it? Interface. Let me see. There's an enormous amount of third-party support. So when I worked at Mycelium, one of the things we were trying to do was implement third-party support, so you can have more cryptocurrencies available and plugins that allow you to buy and sell crypto as well as other things. Um, Edge also supports quite a lot of different crypto. Yeah, unfortunately, it's really hard to see, maybe at an angle like that. But there's a gigantic list of cryptocurrencies that Edge supports, so you can invest in all kind of stuff. And it keeps everything on your phone, which Android phones are a lot more secure than Windows phones. I would actually, Windows, not phones, Windows PCs, I would actually not recommend using a wallet on your computer. Even if your computer does not have viruses, there are issues where somebody can intercept a Bitcoin address. So let's say you have a Bitcoin address sent to you and you're trying to pay somebody, somebody can intercept that Bitcoin address and put their own in place. And it would make you send Bitcoin to where it's not supposed to go. And also, as mentioned, there's these options for buy and sell cryptocurrency. If you want to buy cryptocurrency, you install Edge. There's a couple of services there. Again, it's a little hard to see, but they have services in many different countries. Edge in US has ACH transfer, bank transfer. You can buy Bitcoin via bank transfer powered by wire at about 1%. 1% is about uh, average you would get with this kind of a service. Unfortunately, with um, People claim Bitcoin is not regulated. That's not true. There are very strong financial regulations in almost every country, especially in the US. So in order to buy it, there's still a lot of hassle with regards to having to give whoever you're buying it from your personal information. Like they would require your social security numbers, they require your address, a lot of other personal info, maybe scans of your government IDs. And the reason I do that is because every service that buys and sells Bitcoin is basically subject to the same regulations as banks. So they're required to collect all that information. It might sound scary, but it's not Bitcoin's fault, unfortunately. It's the other banking side's fault. Um, Other wallets that exist out there, if you have, like I would recommend, if you have more than $10,000 worth of savings in cryptocurrencies, especially if over 50,000, there are what's called hardware wallets. Um, they look like this. This is a Trezor. And this device is basically a computer that's completely enclosed in this one little space. And the way this works is your private key is created on the device itself. So the private key that stores and secures your money, your Bitcoin, or whatever other cryptocurrencies you might have on this, um, never actually leaves the device. And there's a key as well. And there's a lot of these devices. I'll show you some more later. So the reason that's secure is because the way it works is you can use this with a computer or a phone. Mycelium does actually support hardware wallets. So the way this works is on your phone you would or computer, you would get a balance of all your accounts and you would find out who you want to send money to. Then once you figure out who you want to send that money to, your computer would create the transaction for that for the transfer, and then it would send the transaction directly to this device, like the Trezor. And then this device would, the screen would pop up and it would ask like, are you sure you want to send to this specific amount address and this some specific amount, in which case you would either confirm or cancel it on the device. And once you confirm it, the transaction is signed on the device with that private key, and then the transaction itself is sent back to your computer. So the private key never actually leaves these devices, which is good because it makes it pretty much impossible to hack. You can use what you call it. You can even use these devices on a computer that has been full of viruses and malware, and nobody will be able to steal your keys because your Bitcoin, because all the private keys are stored on these devices. Um, Again, if you're going to be getting one of these, I would recommend Trezor, KeepKey, or Ledger. They're some of the top ones out there. They are also more standard, was compatible with the backups that I mentioned. So if I have a 12-word backup or 24-word backup for my Trezor and my Trezor breaks, I can buy a KeepKey and I can restore that backup on a KeepKey, and all my money will show up on that device as well. It's all standard. There are some other wallets, like for example, this is called a Cool Wallet S, by Coolbit. Um, this is also a hardware wallet. It has a battery and a screen, so it's pretty cool. You can turn it on. There it goes. See? And then you can see your balances, and it supports different cryptocurrencies. This one is also a hardware wallet where it stores all the private keys on a device, but it communicates only with your phone and only with their software through Bluetooth. So nice thing about this is it's pretty much exactly the size of a credit card. Battery lasts for a long time. It looks pretty cool. It's you can keep it in your wallet. The downside is unfortunately because the screen is limited in what kind of words it can show. It's the backup is not really compatible. They convert the standard 12 or 24 words to numbers like 001, 110, stuff like that. Um, but when I tried to restore it convert it back to words and restore it on my Trezor or KeepKey because my phone died, I couldn't get it working. Yeah, and that's another benefit. These devices, they connect to standard USB. So if my phone dies, which happened because I put water into it, with a Bluetooth device like this, you would be screwed and not be able to get your money back until you get a new phone, or until yeah, and or restore it on. Well, you should have a paper backup of this stuff. Every time you get the 12 and 24 words I mentioned, write those down on a piece of paper to pick them up. But yeah, if your phone dies, you need another phone. You're kind of screwed for a while with these other devices like the Trezor. You can plug it into your computer or any laptop or anything else as well. So compatibility is very important, especially if you want to be portable. The great thing about these devices is that, unlike a bank account, so I don't have all my money on this, obviously. I practice security hygiene and stuff. But with a bank account, let's say you have hundreds of thousands of dollars that would be sitting in a bank. And if you need to travel someplace else, your money is stuck back home. With these devices, you can walk across the border. Nobody knows that you have all this money on you. And people actually carry most of their money with them. Like there are literally multimillionaires who just live anywhere in the world without really caring where they are or what their citizenship is, and they just carry all their money with them wherever they go. So, excuse me. So, first step to buying Bitcoin is get a wallet. Second, as I mentioned, if you have Edge, one reason I love Edge is you go to buy currency, you select your currency, you connect your bank account. Again, unfortunately, because all those services are required to follow financial regulations, they take a while to, well, they'll have to ask for your private information, and then they take a while to approve your account, I guess, because they have to process that information, verify your background, all that kind of stuff. Once that's approved, though, you're ready to go. Other options are, there are cryptocurrency exchanges, such as Kraken is a good one. Edge is a good one. One second. I'm going to show you what Kraken looks like. Oh, a lot of these websites also require two-factor authentication. That's kind of a new thing you may have seen or heard recently. Basically, what that is besides your login and password, they might require a text message sent to your phone or a hardware device. For example, something called two-factor authentication key, like YubiKey. This is what they look like. So this is also, it has a private key on there, just like a Bitcoin wallet. And when you need to log in, website sends a message to this device. This device signs it with a private key and sends it back to the website. So without this device, even if somebody steals your login and password, they will not be able to log in. And that's what I'm doing right now. Is it's asking me to plug in a YubiKey to connect and log in. There it goes. So most Bitcoin exchanges look pretty much the same. Let me share my screen with you guys. Where they're at. Yep, there we go. So for example, this is what Kraken's website looks like. Pretty much a similar concept in all of them. To buy Bitcoin, first you'd have to obviously create a Kraken account. You would have to send and verify your information. Then you would, first with all of them, you'd have to deposit money. One thing I like about Edge is you don't actually have to make a deposit. When you buy through Edge, it takes money directly out of your bank account and sends Bitcoin directly into your wallet. So you don't have to worry about where it's sitting. Here, with Kraken, you'd have to go through funding and actually deposit some dollars. Once you have a balance, which would show up here, you would have to go to trade, and then Kraken is convenient because they have different ways of buying. So if you're a professional trader, you can use different kinds of trades where you actually you can set what price you want, whether it's a market or a limit order, and all the advanced kind of trading things. If you just want to buy Bitcoin, all you do is select simple, type in how much you want and the price, and just hit buy. and it'll buy the Bitcoin for you. Um, Another exchange that I like is Gemini. Let me show you that one. There we go. Gemini is a little bit more advanced. It pretty much only gives you this screen with the trading graphs and price graphs and different types of limits and orders and stuff. So with Gemini, let me see. Right, you have to, I believe, you also have to fund it in the same way. Right, but it's a little bit hidden here. You're right. So over on the side, you can see your balances are, excuse me, or add funds. So if you hit see balances, I have nothing, obviously. And then I don't keep money on exchanges. And then add funds. And here you would also, again, you would have to sign up for the Gemini account. Gemini is actually kind of a fun fact. It's made by and owned by Winklevoss twins brothers. If that name isn't familiar, if you've ever seen the movie Social Network, they're the guys who claimed they invented Facebook and sued Mark Zuckerberg for stealing the idea from them, and basically got a settlement out of it. So they started this exchange called Gemini, which excuse me, initially was an exchange, and long term, they also wanted to create a dollar-backed cryptocurrency called Gemini coin, which would be tied one-to-one to the dollar. And recently in the news, you may have heard about Libra dollars, which was Facebook's version of stable coins, I guess, dollar-backed cryptocurrency. If you're wondering why it was called Libra, so Winklevoss twins claimed they invented Facebook, sued Mark Zuckerberg, and kind of sort of won some money out of that. And now they're they started Gemini and wanted to make Gemini dollars. So Libra, obviously Gemini and Libra are both zodiac signs. The reason they called it Libra is kind of a way to troll and slap in the face these Gemini guys, basically. So even though these people are like multi-billionaires, they're still kind of trolling each other with this kind of stuff. But anyway, Gemini, same deal. You select deposit funds, you select the currency after you have all the approvals done. Select currency, select how much you want, review and complete. And most of these exchanges are international, so you can deposit in US dollars, or most of them support euro stuff like that too. And then once you have the funds available on the Gemini page, you would select what kind of order you want. Typically, like market order is whatever the price is right now, you just buy instantly. That's the easiest one to do. You just type in market order, how many dollars you want to buy, hit buy, you're done. For more complex stuff like limit order, this is where you actually select which price you want to buy at. So if you expect Bitcoin is going to be going down, for example, and this line here looks like it's trending down, you can set a limit order of, like, I say I want to buy 7,500 instead of 7,543. Of course, problem is Bitcoin is kind of goes up and down, so you might think it's going to be going down and it just goes up and you never buy it. So typically I prefer just doing market orders. Now, I mentioned that I do not have any cryptocurrency on my exchange or any money on my exchanges. Kind of a number one rule in cryptocurrencies is if you don't own the private keys, you don't own the coins. Any cryptocurrency that's on exchanges, you don't technically you don't own it, because the private keys are owned by the exchanges themselves. So problem with that is if the exchange gets hacked, or if your account gets in trouble, or if there's some other issues, they can, or if the business goes out of business, they have access to your money and you don't, so now you're screwed. So generally, that's why I recommend installing a wallet on your phone, like Edge Wallet, or getting a hardware wallet like Trezor, Keepy, Ledger. I had a ledger, I just don't know where it's at right now. And then as soon as your money, your Bitcoin is confirmed on your exchange, transfer it straight to your wallet as soon as you can. Don't leave anything on exchanges unless you're day trading, which I don't really recommend either. But generally, try to keep your cryptocurrencies on your own devices. Another service that's actually really old and has been for a long time and also fairly easy to use is Coinbase. Coinbase is actually also owned by the same guys who do Gemini. Gemini is kind of like the more advanced version for traders. Uh, the benefit of more advanced exchanges like Kraken and Gemini is that they charge you 0.25 to 0.5%, half a percent of uh, whatever you're trading is a fee. Um, if you're buying large amounts, um, that's really important, basically, because 0.1%, half a percent of $10,000 is still a significant amount. Whereas if you're buying small amounts, 1% is like not that much. Like, I mean, $20, you pay 20 cents, not a big deal. So Coinbase charges 1%. It's more of a simpler service. On Edge, Wire, as I mentioned, or one of the ACH bank transfer, there they also typically charge 1%. Some services charge about 6% or more if you want to just buy it right now as a credit card, because there's issues with credit cards with regards to chargebacks. But anyway, for simpler, smaller amounts, I would recommend Coinbase. Coinbase is very easy to use. It's just almost as easy as PayPal or Wire or whatever service from Edge. For large amounts, I would recommend Kraken or Gemini or one of the other exchanges. And as I said, once you're done, move into your wallet. So what kind of other questions do we have here? Let me take a drink 1 second. Kind of a good one. People ask what kind of cryptocurrencies to invest in. Excuse me. So, I mean, in short, Bitcoin, maybe some others, but mainly Bitcoin, BTC Bitcoin. Long answer is there's a lot of things in here like first mover advantages where Bitcoin was first, so it has the most developers and the most support by third parties. And I don't mean just you, you have to look at a currency not just as a how many developers are actually working on a currency itself, but how many developers are working on services to support it. So how many wallets are there, what kind of hardware wallets supported, what kind of merchants supported, what kind of merchant point of sale systems are, that kind of stuff. So the bigger the infrastructure, the more value this coin will have. Bitcoin has been around for the longest. It has the most amount of support, the most amount of users. And although it might have issues in the future, right as it is right now, it would still be very difficult for another currency to come in and supplant it. There's also Bitcoin Cash, which I kind of support as um, an alternative to a scaling solution. Although, unfortunately, in the last couple of months to a year or so, Bitcoin Cash has been kind of fizzling out a little bit. Um, the one major issue with cryptocurrency that is still currently being solved is that um, on a small scale, it works really good. But if we try to scale it up to the entire world or even just the country of the US using it, there's not quite enough space. The way that technology is set up right now, there's not enough space to be able to support everybody. But there are scaling solutions being developed on both Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, as BCH, and some others. And the reason Bitcoin split into Bitcoin BTC and Bitcoin Cash BCH is because some of the developers disagreed on how that scaling should actually be done. So, as I said, the reason I support Bitcoin Cash is because it's just another scaling solution that may or may not work. Although, as I said, it's been kind of fizzling out, and Bitcoin, the original one, still has a massive amount of brand recognition and third-party support. A lot of people ask about currencies like Ethereum. So Ethereum is a popular one, also with a lot of brand recognition. I don't really recommend Ethereum because it's not really a money. Ethereum is more designed for like contracts or uh, just tokens that run on top of it. So it was originally supposed to be a contracting platform, but for now, that seems the only reason people use it is to set up contracts to issue securities and tokens and stuff like that. Um, the problem with main issue is that it's like uh, I I think of contracts as like Office, for example. You can have Microsoft Office, but you're not really locked into it because if you have a contract written in Microsoft Word, you can copy paste it into Google Docs, you can copy paste it into LibreOffice or any of the other Office suites. In the same way with Ethereum, if you have a contract running on Ethereum, you can take that contract and move it to any of the other smart contracting platforms like EOS or uh, there's a ton of them. So you're not really locked into that specific platform. Also, Ethereum is having even more scaling issues than other currencies because a lot of people have piled on a lot of data into the system, and it's getting more and more difficult for the entire system to handle and store that data. Um, but so generally, with regards to how to invest in cryptocurrencies, I look at it as it's really no different than investing in business. You want to see what kind of team is working on the currency. You want to see um, how how well it works. Obviously, uh, major point is what is its unique selling proposition. So same as when you look at a business, you want to see how is this business different from other businesses. Why should I invest in this business versus something else? It's the same with cryptocurrencies. Like what makes this cryptocurrency different from others that cannot be copied. Um, that gets a little bit more difficult with regards to, like, let's say Bitcoin. Anybody can just copy Bitcoin, and people have copied Bitcoin. That's why there's a lot of different altcoins out there. But one thing that Bitcoin cannot copy, that nobody can copy, is the network. You can't copy the network of all the people who are using Bitcoin, who are supporting Bitcoin, who are mining on Bitcoin. It's the same way that you can, like, if you manage to steal Facebook code and run it on your computer, you can copy Facebook. That doesn't mean that you'll have Facebook because you don't have all the network of people that are running on it. So network is very important, network effects. First mover advantage is important. What makes it different? Like, as I mentioned, was um, Ethereum, it has a network, but it's not a lock-in effect, right? That's the other one I was trying to remember. So Ethereum is has a large network, but there's really nothing stopping people from moving to other things. So lock-in effect, it's a business term. Uh, for example, easy way to describe it, let's say you have an Android phone and you have a lot of apps on it. You can't move to iPhone because all your apps are on Android, especially if apps that you bought. So you're kind of locked into sticking with Android. Same way with iPhone. If you're on iPhone, it's really hard to move to Android because all your apps and things you bought are on iPhone. But Microsoft Office doesn't really have much of a lock-in effect because if you stop using Microsoft Office, there's tons of alternatives you can use, many of them for free as well. So with Bitcoin, there's lock-in effect where Bitcoin is money. You can't just abandon your money and go elsewhere because you have money that actually has value. Whereas with contracts, you can copy paste the contract someplace else. So there's not that much lock-in effect. So you look at that for cryptocurrencies as well. And also make sure that the currency actually makes sense. Like, for example, there may be a currency that pays you for generating solar power. Um, sounds like a good idea. It's an incentive for people to uh, convert to solar. But then think about, like, why would this currency have any value? Like, why would I accept solar coins from somebody who's generating solar power when I don't even know if I can spend this money? Or how would it even be possible that somebody is actually using solar to generate that power as opposed to just uh, splicing it to a regular power line in their home or something like that. So, and there's a lot of currencies, unfortunately, that don't make sense. But yeah, that's basically what I recommend how to evaluate currencies. My top picks, as I mentioned, Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, maybe Monero for privacy. Monero has a pretty good development team behind it too. And all of them kind of have similar scaling issues though, but they're all developing pretty well. So mainly look at uh, more of the popular ones. One that's out there a lot that I hear, unfortunately, is Ripple. I would actually probably recommend against Ripple because Ripple is not really a currency per se. It's more of um, a transfer of value transfer mechanism where the ripples themselves, people got confused thinking ripples themselves are cryptocurrencies. That's not really what they're designed for. And although Ripple has been around for many, many years, it's hasn't really gone anywhere. Uh, they're they will go someplace if banks start using Ripple instead of bank-to-bank transfer, but over many years, they just haven't been able to really convince people to do that. And if you think about it, value transfer mechanism for transferring dollars kind of becomes redundant if people just start using Bitcoin and using Bitcoin's own built-in transfer mechanism. Um, anyway, that's it for that cryptocurrency question. Let's see. I wonder if there's any more questions out there. Check something. No more questions. No, it looks like that's it. Okay. Let me see if I can think of anything. Yeah. So key takeaways. If you don't own your private keys, you don't own the coins. Make sure that you have private keys for every cryptocurrency that you own. Do not. I've seen people do this. Please don't do this. Do not write down your private keys like those 12 words or 24 words or logins and passwords on your computer. Especially don't save it in the text file someplace in your desktop because people can steal it, malware can steal it. Like I've I've helped and seen a lot of people who had money just disappear from their wallets just because they had their um, private key someplace. We've even seen that in phones too. While working with mycelium, I've seen people uh, submit tech support questions where they had their money suddenly disappear and they had no idea why. And it was because of they saved a screenshot of their phone with the private key on there, and somehow somebody stole that. So always write down your private keys on a piece of paper. Also remember that if anything happens to you and nobody knows your password, nobody knows your private keys, those bitcoins are gone forever. Unlike with a bank, it's impossible to restore them. So if you have a lot of money, make sure that you have a private key written down someplace on paper, and also make sure that it's hidden someplace where somebody else can find it should anything happen to you. Um, and it doesn't even have to be death. There's been cases where somebody had a traumatic brain injury and they're okay, but they had memory loss where they simply forgot their passwords. So have it written down someplace. Um, for large amounts, I recommend over 10 to 50, 10,000. If you're a little more, sometimes maybe a little harder, 50,000 definitely. Make sure you're storing your money on a hardware wallet. Again, KeepKey is a good one. Trezor is a good one. This is an older one. There's a newer one available out there. Ledger is also a really good one. Um, if you're using exchanges, do not store your money on exchanges. And if you want to invest in other kind of cryptocurrencies, just remember that typically all other cryptocurrencies follow whoever is the leader. So Bitcoin goes up, others go up. Bitcoin crashes, other crash. Um, and don't think of cryptocurrencies as anything strange or weird or like techie. It's just money. It's money developed by not really companies, but just organizations and teams working on it. So evaluate them themselves. Evaluate cryptocurrencies the same way you would evaluate any kind of business. You know, network effect, how much of a network it already has, lock-in effect, what kind of developers, and does it actually make sense? Anyway, that's going to be it for today because we're running out of time, and I do hope to be able to do this again next week. Um, I'll probably be doing this on the weekends. Might move it sometime may move it to evenings if enough people, on weekday evenings if enough people complain that they want to keep their weekend free. But keep those questions coming, guys, and I'll see you guys later.